MLB offseason over and spring training is officially here. And with that said, I ask you this question. How did these teams do this offseason? And when I'm judging these teams, I'm judging them based off their needs and expectations, because you can't expect the Pirates to spin like the Dodgers, for example. In this video, I'll be covering the American League team's offseason grade. And in my next video, I'll be covering the NL offseason grade. That's why you need to have notification bells on my videos, and check if you're subscribed right now so you can see the video as soon as I drop it. With all of that said, let's get into these off-season grades. With doing the off-season grades for the AL, we're going to go in alphabetical order, so that starts with the Baltimore Orioles. The Baltimore Orioles are going to get an A off-season grade for me. The Orioles are officially in business and cooking, but the reason they're back in cooking isn't even a baseball-related thing. The Angelos family has agreed to sell the Baltimore Orioles to David Rubenstein. To keep it brief, the Orioles under the Angelos family was an abomination. If the Angelos were going to stay on board, most people knew this team was going to fumble their max potential. But with a new owner, the sky could be the limit, or it could be incompetence. It's an unknown. But I'd take the unknown before well-known shit like the Angelos family have been giving the Orioles for many years. But overall, their offseason of adding Corbin Burnes puts the rest of the AL on notice that they are here. But if they want to be here to stay, I'd like to see them start extending some of their talent for the long haul. That is the only thing removing an A+ for me for them. But the minute they start investing fully into this core, Orioles could be a team on World Series watch for years to come, as they have a stacked farm system and a roster that won over 100 games last year. Next up on my off-season grades, I have the Boston Red Sox, and I'm giving them a C-. The decline of the Boston Red Sox is honestly sad to see at this point. Seeing them go from a team that spent the most to now they're the ones doing salary dumps, it's just a sight I thought I would never see. The Verdugo move doesn't move me one way or another because Verdugo isn't special, so I can understand not wanting to pay him after this year. It's the Chris Sale move to me is why they are cheap. They traded Sale in a salary dump move to get a cost-controlled second baseman for years to come in Vaughn Grissom, and then they signed Lucas Giolito to essentially around the same money that Sale was going to get. So they have a worse starting pitcher on the roster because they couldn't afford to just pay a second baseman and Chris Sale. I do like them getting Vaughn, but knowing why they got Vaughn is to why you have to question it. I do like the buy low move of Tyler O'Neill, as he has all the tools to succeed, and I think a change of scenery from St. Louis is going to do him well. He kind of got into it with his manager last year. If it's not an environment for you to succeed, it could affect your hitting. But given their now financial constraints, the Red Sox are going to continue to be bottom dwellers in the AL East as long as they stay cheap compared to what they used to be. Next up on my list, we have the Chicago White Sox, and I'm giving them a flat-out F. Nothing is worse to me than being a bad team that sits on their ass, and that is exactly what the Chicago White Sox have been doing. After putting Dylan Cease on the trade market, no one has bitten because their demand is way too high. To me, when everyone is saying your price is too high, you might want to bring it down a little bit and get Dylan Cease moved while you still have 2 years of control that teams will be buying for. Because now if you're waiting until the trade deadline, you're only trading essentially 1.5 years of Dylan Cease, which is less enticing than 2 years that they would have had if they'd done it this offseason. So in return, you're probably going to get less than what you would have demanded, so you probably should have just lessened your demand to get what you needed to move on. Now, they still could move Dylan Cease before the season began, and then I could look at their season a little differently, but as of now, you deserve a flat-out F for handling that. And having Eric Fetty, John Brebbia, Paul DeJong, and Martin Maldonado be your biggest offseason acquisitions. They traded Aaron Bummer for essentially roster depth with infielders Brandon Shoemaker, Nicky Lopez, Mike Soroka, and Jared Schuster. The whole offseason just deserves a big fat F for me. The Sox just seem like a team that doesn't know what to do with themselves when it was perfectly in their face to trade away some people and retool, but now they have no direction or guidance going into 2024, and for a team that just lost 101 games, what are they doing here? It's pretty mind-boggling how bad some of these front offices are. And speaking of teams with no guidance, we have the Cleveland Guardians, who I also am giving an F for this offseason. I blame the Cleveland Guardians owner before I blame their management, because with a payroll estimate of $96 million, that is just unacceptable. It's hard to take a team serious as World Series contenders when you spend that little. I understand that the Cleveland Guardians are never going to spend like the Dodgers or Yankees, Yankees, but you can't be spending under $100 million and also acting like you're committing to winning. And with a team that's so desperate for offense, the fact that they haven't added anyone to help is just a slap in the face to fans that spend their hard-earned money for this team. I'm also surprised Shane Bieber hasn't been moved as well. As we know, with 1 year of control left and the Guardians won't pay him, everyone thought it was only a matter of time before he gets moved. There's still a chance it could happen before opening day, but as of this video, it hasn't happened. And for completely sitting on your ass in all areas, the Guardians deserve an F. Just a really bad offseason. They could have made moves or strides because the AL Central is completely open and they're just like, I don't want it. Next up on my offseason grades, we have the Detroit Tigers, and I am giving them a B-. I think Detroit did fine for all things considered, but I still think they should have brought in another hitter to help balance this lineup that was one of the worst in baseball. Unfortunately to say, it's an addition by subtraction with Miguel Cabrera retiring, but I think the Tigers dropped the ball in that regard because they could have brought in a new veteran hitter to help mentor these young players. Canha is a solid addition, but given their payroll isn't that high, I think they could have aimed for a better hitter or at least add another hitter with Mark. Tigers are in that realm where they are closer to competing for the playoffs than ever before, but they also have a lot of unproven talent that they need to see what they got with in regards to Spencer Torkelson, Colt Keith, Casey Mize, Matt Manning, and Riley Green. The good thing about Detroit is if they are better and legit, they can add at the deadline. If Detroit spent a little more offensively, they've gotten a B or B+, but I still don't think it was a bad offseason for them. It just could have been better. And also, Jack Flaherty and Kent Maeda are solid additions to help ease the loss of Eduardo Rodriguez, who really turned it up with Detroit. But Detroit's future was always going to be decided by what their top prospects become, not what this offseason was going to do for them. So we will see in 2024 if Detroit makes improvements or they're going to have to be a team that rethinks their plan. Next up, we have the Houston Astros. An offseason grade I'm going to give them is an A-. They were able to get a top closer in baseball, and they replaced a negative value player, Martin Maldonado, for a positive value in Victor Caratini. Being a team that didn't have much to do, improving upon your biggest needs and locking up your franchise player for the long haul and Jose Altuve, it seems like the ideal and perfect offseason for the Houston Astros as they look to take down the reigning world champion Texas Rangers. After the Houston Astros, we have the Kansas City Royals, and I'm gonna give them an A+. I really like what the Royals are doing. Knowing that they aren't ready to compete but want to be closer to it, they brought in some veterans that will help the roster this year in Michael Wacha, Seth Lugo, and Hunter Renfroe. But let's be real, the reason I have them as an A+ grade is they were able to lock up Bobby Witt Jr. for the long haul, and nobody saw this coming. Seeing a team that hasn't been committed to spending finally spending it, and the fact that they've released renderings of their new ballpark, maybe this could be the start of something good for the Kansas City Royals. While they did win the World Series in the 2015, the 2020s have been very rough for the Royals. After the Kansas City Royals, I have the Los Angeles Angels, and I am giving them a C-. Seeing as they just lost Shohei Ohtani to the Los Angeles Dodgers, and they're a team with one of the most awkward situations in baseball. They have a lot of money committed but aren't really that great, and now with Mike Trout's injury woes, it's honestly not looking bright for the Angels if he isn't able to regain himself this year. They used this offseason to reinvest in their bullpen with additions like Robert Stevenson and Matt Moore, and they brought in Aaron Hicks for outfield depth, but I expect more mediocrity to come for the Los Angeles Angels because they didn't really make any moves to move the needle or offset losing Ohtani. It's just like, hey, we're here. We're the Los Angeles Angels. We're mediocre. Next up, I have the Minnesota Twins, and I'm giving them a D+. I feel bad for Twins fans. They have their first playoff win since 2004, and because of a TV deal issue, their owner made an executive decision to cut the payroll, and as a result, the team has gotten worse. Losing Sonny Gray and trading away Jorge Polanco, luckily the Twins do have some young talent to fill in the gaps in an otherwise very weak AL Central, but man, this should have been an offseason where the Twins were making those additions to be finally competing for a World Series ring, but instead they are cutting costs, betting on younger players, and that may work for winning the AL Central, but if they think they're going to compete for the World Series doing that, everything is going to have to go their Twins' way. So that's why I gave them an offseason grade of a D+. For the New York Yankees, I've given them an offseason grade grade of B+. I love the Juan Soto move, even if they don't sign him after this year. The Yankees needed a splash move after the 2023 season they had. The reason why I don't have them as an A- or an A, I really don't love the Alex Verdugo move as it moves Judge to center field, which could lead to more injuries or overall worse outfield defense. I just felt like the Yankees had the perfect opportunity to just get a full-time center fielder and have Judge and Juan Soto in the corner outfield positions where they belong, but instead they got a little cute with it. And yes, Judge can play center field, but he's in his 30s now and he just had a season where he wasn't healthy for a full year. I just don't see putting him in center field full-time as the greatest option when the whole offseason was there to find a center fielder. They did bring Trent Grisham in with the Juan Soto trade, but that guy's better off as a fourth outfielder slash defensive replacement. So yes, the Yankees had a good offseason, and I didn't even talk about them bringing in Marcus Stroman, but I just did not love the Alex Verdugo move, so I could not give them higher. But if Judge is able to stay healthy for the full year at center field, I'll eat crow on it. But yes, the Yankees had a strong offseason and they should be competing in a tough AL East. Next up, we have the Oakland A's, and I'm going to be giving them an F. The owner, John Fisher, doesn't care. He's made it to where the fans no longer care. The team is moving to Vegas. It's honestly disrespectful to the game of baseball what John Fisher has done to the A's. And as a Las Vegas resident, I don't want the A's here as long as he's owner, because you know what he's going to try and do. As soon as the park is finalized, he'll spend some money to get some people in the park for those teams, but the minute he actually needs to pay those players, he will be shipping them off. John Fisher needs to be out of baseball, and the sooner it happens, the sooner it's better for everyone involved. Because as I stated before, I just feel bad for what Oakland A's fans have had to go through with him as owner. They deserve so much better. And as far as the Oakland A's for 2024, they are going to be in contention for one of the worst teams of all time. For the Seattle Mariners, I am giving them an offseason grade of B. For a team that can't spend $200 million yearly, the Mariners make the most for what they got. After Kelenic kicked a water cooler and broke his foot, it was honestly time for a change of scenery, and they were able to dump some money and actually get a good return with the money that they saved from it. It's not a move you would love to make, and if they were a team with a payroll closer to 175 to 200 million, they wouldn't, but it's what the Mariners have to do to survive. Getting Mitch Garver was a good move, and then they added Jorge Polanco recently in a trade, and they also added Luke Raley, but he had a bad second half, so we'll see if that carries over to 2024. And they are trying Mitch Haniger again. While I do think the Mariners are better than what they were last year, you do wonder if they had $30 to $50 million more, how much better would this team be? It is sad, but I think they're making the best of the money that they have. That's why I gave them a B. But if Jarred Kelenic does become a star, I know it's going to hurt Mariners fans. But like I said, at least they have made moves to compete for this year. Next up, we have the Tampa Bay Rays, and I have given them a C grade. We all know the Rays don't spin, and that continues this offseason as they traded away Tyler Glasnow to the Los Angeles Dodgers along with Manuel Margot for Ryan Pepiot and Johnny DeLuca. The Rays scouting is top notch, so I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt with that return. I don't know, I've just come to accept the Rays typically never address their needs in the offseason, but then they still find ways to be great in the regular season. Also, we can't ignore the elephant in the room and act like this team also isn't affected by the loss of their best hitter due to him being a horrible person. And with him being a horrible person, they had to trade Luke Raley for Jose Caballero to replace him at shortstop. I do think where the Rays went wrong, they should have spent some money on a catcher, as I don't think Rene Pinto and Alex Jackson combo is enough for a team trying to contend. But I guess we'll see, because the Rays did say they're committed to Rene for full-time catching duties this year. But yeah, it was a mediocre and average offseason for the Rays. Next up, we have the team coming off the World Series, the Texas Rangers, and I have given them a C grade. They had pending free agents Mitch Garver, Jordan Montgomery. They weren't going to be able to keep everyone, and so far the Rangers have gone the route to shore up their pen with additions of David Robertson and Kirby Yates. While they did bring in Tyler Mahle, most expected the Rangers to be in the market for Jordan Montgomery or Blake Snell, a top of the rotation starter, while they have DeGrom, Scherzer, and Mahle all recovering from injuries. There is still time for the Rangers to do it, as neither has signed, but as of now, this has been an average offseason for the World Series defending champions. champions. Last up, we have a Toronto Blue Jays, and for an offseason grade for them, I'm going with a D-. A team that had the offseason potentially build themselves into scary contenders. The Blue Jays in return added Kevin Kiermaier and Justin Turner. Not exactly riveting. With Matt Chapman, Brandon Belt, and Whit Merrifield all leaving, I expected the Blue Jays to do more given all they need. I don't know, you hear a team linked to Ohtani and in trade talks with Juan Soto, and it comes to this, it's hard to not call this offseason somewhat of a failure. They should still compete in the AL East, but they could have solidified themselves as a favorite, but they are closer to the third or fourth best team than I would say they're closer to the best team. So these are my offseason grades for the AL teams. Remember, I will be doing an NL video shortly, so stay tuned for that. Y'all let me know in the comment section, do you agree with my offseason grades? Was I too harsh on a team or too lenient? I would love to hear it in the comment section. And if you made it to this point of the video, I really appreciate you. You're a real one, and I hope to see you for the next video.